So, for lesson 2.1, scalar and vector quantities. Skip. What are vector quantities and why is specifying the direction important? So, mo nang question nga itong ansiran ron. Okay. So, two types of physical quantities na ang scalar quantities and vector quantities. How do scalar differ from vector quantities? So, let's say the temperature of an object is measured by a thermometer. So, mo ni siya ang scalar. See, no directions ang gipakita, kundi ang single number and unit ragid niya. So, scalar quantity is a physical quantity that has magnitude, size, and quantity, but no direction. Just like I said, temperature is a scalar quantity. So, scalar quantity, it is described by a single number with its appropriate unit. Single number 15, unit niya kay kilograms. Siya ang scalar quantity. So, suppose you have two apples and orange masses provided below. So, din siya. So, i-add ra na siya ang apple ug ang orange. So, sa next slide, ito ipakita usaw na siya pag-add ng duha. So, nadiri, unsang pagkuha sa mass sa apple and orange. So, 136 grams plus 262 grams equals to 398 grams. So, copy rin na ang grams since same raman sila og unit. But ang kaning mga singular numbers niya, i-add yun na siya para makuha ang total mass niya. Next is vector quantity. A vector quantity is a physical quantity with both magnitude and direction. So, see, kita na ang difference between scalar and vector. Magnitude describes a quantity of the size and a physical quantity, while direction describes how the vector is oriented relative to a reference point. Okay, so suppose you were to describe the velocity of a car. So, sa car, ato din na i-differentiate ang velocity and speed, no? So, the car is moving at speed of 30 minutes per second. Speed is a scalar quantity. Nga, no? Walay direction. See? Oh, ipakita na ang difference niya between ang speed and velocity. Velocity is a vector. Nga no, naa siya direction. Kanas kinalasan, eastward. That is a direction. So, what are other examples of vector quantity? Muna to sa inyong mga kita katunay mga directions. Okay, so next slide. Vectors are represented by a single letter with an arrow above them. So, mo ng vectors, kaning na arrow sa ibabaw. Velocity kay vector quantity, while ang speed kay scalar quantity. Mo na ang difference niya. Kung sa symbol pa lang gani na ay arrow sa ibabaw, kung velocity nag-indicate og direction. While sa speed kay wala. Kay wala man siya gitumong nga kanang direction. So, the magnitude of vectors is represented by the same letter used in a vector quantity. So, magnitude of direction V equals to V. equals to, nanadar ang results, the magnitude is a scalar quantity. Yeah. Para sa next slide is how do we represent vector quantities? So suppose you have initial of p sub 1 and final point p sub 2. So si naa siya'y kurbada. Then unsa man maka taas naman kay na siya. So naa na gi-represent dayon si different distance na si P1 to P2 sa other figure nga mas dali siya, wala siya kurbada. Kumbaga mura na siya shortcut. So, but the shortest distance is defined as a displacement, kaning tulid nga line, kaning tulid nga pathway, while ang kaning si first figure nga P1, P2 nga ni kurbada kay longer distance na siya. While ang kaning si P1 o P2, mao ni siya ang gitawag nga displacement or shortest distance. Displacement is a vector quantity and is represented by an arrow. Na-show kananay arrow dira nga gamay tapat sa P2, mo na siya. And the length of an arrow represents the vector's magnitude. So short arrow, smaller magnitude, while longer arrow, bigger magnitude. Kani siya, kailangan na siya maggamit og XY planes. Ara na namusud si XY planes. So, moving on to rules in representing vectors. Begin by deciding on the scale that you want to use. So, scale niya kay 1 cm equals siya sa 1 kilometer. Where this 5 cm arrow is 5 kilometers in reality. So, gi-convert siya. Yan. Number 2, sa identifying where the space of the place vector based on its direction. So, na diri pa east. Yan sukod kay 5 kilometers east. So, usa ra ka direction. So, padung gyud na siya sa east. Since wa man siya katapad, di man siya east of north or north of east, planar man siya east, padung gyud na siya sa east. So, pahigda padung sa east. The direction of the vector is expressed as an angle of rotation, either from the north, south, or west, or east or west. So, nani siya? North of east. So, 30 degrees. Ay, north of west. So, magikan gina siya sa west, basta kinalasan gin magbase. Gikan sa west pa dun sa north. Iambok ka kay 30 degrees. Wala siyang pag-identify. So, perminti gid magtan-aw sa direction niya before magbutang sa degrees. So, by default, angles are measured from the east direction. So, mag-start gid na siya sa east always. Sa east, kung magamit og protractor, itumong gid niya siya una sa east before mag-measure sa degrees. Kana 3 centimeters to the west. West, isa ray direction, padung ra sa west. So, 3 centimeters padung sa west. Maura na siya. Then, dili na to sa graphical method of adding vectors, no? So, draw B using the same scale that gigamit to siya. So, na diri mag-add, ari na mag-add ang mga vector. So, draw an arrow connecting the tail A and the tip of B. This is the resultant vector R. So, kaning R, resultant ni siya. Measure the length of R and use the scale to find its real length. Use protractor to measure the angle. So, always use protractor ta ani para makuha na tong exact measurement niya, exact angle. Para makuha ang length nga si 6 cm equivalent to 60 meters, ang iyahang resultant is 60 meters, 39 degrees south of east. Mo na direction niya. So, the vector or resultant may vary from the individuals to another due to the limitations of our measuring devices, such as the ruler and the protractor. However, this deviation should only be a few millimeters or few degrees. So, the sum of the vectors is called the resultant. Mo ni siya. So, vectors are considered equal only if they have the same magnitude and direction. Parallel vectors are those pointing the same direction. On the other hand, anti-parallel vectors are those that are in opposite. So, ang kanidi ang difference din ni parallel o anti-parallel, no? Kay ang parallel mo na siya ang same nga direction and same magnitude. Walang anti-parallel kay dili sila same og direction but same sila og magnitude. That's it for lesson 2.2. 2.3 na po the components of vectors. So, how are the components of the vector calculated? Consider a displacement is also component along the north. So, vertical pabarog. Next is the next kay so kibon naman to sa next vertical ara na punta siya horizontal. Okay ba? Okay, horizontal. So, pahigda. So, by that, makapurma na tag-triangle. Ano? Can you resolve the components? So, ayun na. The direction, ayun na to sa direction of the vector can be presented as angle. Mo na siya kanang symbol nga O, yan na ay tunga kay mo na siya ang theta. Measured in a counterclockwise direction from the positive x-axis. So, kada nga right triangle below, kana mga letters, ano na yung mga meanings. So, sa H, kanang taas nga parts triangle is the hypotenuse. Next is the opposite. Nanong opposite siya? Because it is opposite sa angle. Adjacent, kanang nas ubos, kanang A ang iyahang initial. So, sa trigo, ato lagi remember ng sokatawa where sine opposite over hypotenuse, cosine over adjacent over hypotenuse, then tangent equals to opposite over hypotenuse. Just remember sokatawa. In calculating sine, cosine, and tangent, make sure that your calculator is in degrees mode, since the angles or directions are given in degrees. Otherwise, you will get a different value for your final answer. So, kano siya? Reminder na siya sa calcu. So, suppose we have the following displacement vector. Ano siya? So, components of vertical axis, ang pabarog mo na si AY. Next, si AX na pudot mangitan, which is ang higda, horizontal. So, we will use sine and cosine for that. No, where si AX kay cosine, while si AY kay sine. Mo na iyahang formula to para makita nimo ang X and Y nga components. So what are the x and y components of a displacement vector with a magnitude of 50 meters and an angle of 30 degrees? So ang x niya, of course, gamit ta sa katong formula, cosine, 43.30 meters, while si y, mo na siya si sine nga formula is 25 meters. So in the same way that a vector can be resolved into its components, a vector's magnitude and direction can also be calculated using its components. Trigonometric functions involving the angle and the ratio of the sides of a right triangle can also be used to calculate the resultant vector. So, mo ni siya. Kani nga formula nga naskilid, mo ni siya ang Pythagorean theorem where magamit ni siya sa pag-solve, sa pag-calculate na sa resultant, no? So, sa next formula, mo ni siya the angle or direction of the vector is determined using inverse tangent function of the ratio and x and y components. So theta equals tan negative 1 ay over ax. So to ensure that your final answer is correct, it is very important that you check the signs of the x and y components. It will be helpful to draw a sketch to identify the location of x and y components. It is in this way you will be able to easily identify locations of the angle, direction, the Cartesian plane. So importante yun na mag-draw mo og sketch before mo mag-solve kay or ma-identify ninyo og dali ang inyong triangle. Okay, to sum it up, a vector at an angle can be resolved into its two components. A component parallel to horizontal axis, x-axis, and another component parallel to the vertical axis, y-axis. The components of vectors are calculated using trigonometric functions. Angle theta should be measured in counterclockwise direction from the positive x-axis to use the given equations for the x and y components. The magnitude and direction of the vector can be calculated through two components, Pythagorean theorem and tangent. Steps in adding vector using analytical method. After this, add all x components together. Do the same for the y components. The sums are the x and y components. Balik sa. Ay, di na di. So, nanadira ang mga steps kay aron effective ang inyong pag-solve. So, sa step 4, then key formulas dayon. Ang concept, ang formula, and description. So, kana sa formula, magamit na nimo use po kung mag-calculate na ta sa x and y nga components. And that is sa Pythagorean theorem, kana sa lastly kay sa direction. Last lesson is motion descriptors. Okay. So how can we say the motion if the object is moving? Of course, kung move siya from one direction to another. So consider nato ning soccer ball kicked by a soccer player. The ball moves because the soccer player kicked it. The ball changed position from the soccer player's final initial point to a target position, preferably the goal. Motion is defined as the change of position of an object in a specific span of time relative to an observer. Okay. Una siya initial position niya, x sub 0, and the final position, x sub f.
Hello.
So, time. It is a quantity that describes when an event took place. It is a necessary parameter to describe and to observe changes in a specific space. It is measured in terms of seconds and usually noted by time. Distance and displacement. So, nadiri ang point of difference, definition, type of quantity as a unit and symbol. So, sa distance niya, distance describe how far an object has traveled. While displacement, it is the length and direction of the line, connection of initial position to the final position. So, ang kalahian nila, distance is a scalar quantity while displacement is a vector quantity. And silang symbol, dali ra may ban kay sa scalar walay direction. While sa vector naa kanang arrow sa ibabaw. Mao na ang iyang timailhan nga kana siya kay vector quantity siya.
Wala na ko. Asa mo lapit? Kuya, asa mo lapit?
Okay, don't mind the sound sa background. So, distance and displacement. Distance is always greater than or equal to displacement. These two quantities can only be equal if the object in motion travels towards one direction only and does not go back to its original position. So, dili magbalik-balik. So, the skater moves from A to B, B to C, and finally C to D. So, from A to B, iyahang distance, then allocate dayon ang B to C. So, dire. Then, finally, kay C to D. So, ang mga cover nila nga distance kay from A to B, 180, B to C, 140, C to D, 100. With a total of 420 meters. Mo na iyahang distance nga na-covered. Okay, so draw distance calculated by the scale. Speed and velocity, these are quantities that combine concept and space. Speed is the rate of change in position. It can be noted as v or s and has a unit of meter per second or meter per second to the power of -1. Velocity is the rate of change in position with respect to a reference point. The direction on how the object moves is important in determining velocity. Next, okay, speed and velocity. So, point difference. Sa definition pa lang, sa speed ka nag-describe how fast an object. Sa velocity kay the rate of change in position. Same rig difference, speed is scalar, velocity is vector. So symbol gapon, you can still tell nga dako gid sila og kalahian from no direction to with direction. So sa speed, yung formula kay v equals distance over time, while sa velocity, instead of distance, displacement displacement over time. Okay. So sa pag-locate sa speed niya, use the formula. Distance niya kay 420 meters. Iyang time kay 180 seconds. That will be equal to 2.33 meters per seconds. Okay. Another is sa pag-locate na pod sa velocity. So iyahang displacement kay 140 meters, iyang time kay 180 seconds. So with the total of 0.778 meters per seconds. So si dili gid lahi ra gyud og kalabasan sa answer si speed og si velocity. So for acceleration, it describes how an object changes its velocity per elapsed time. Na siya. So yeah, SI unit kay meters per second squared. Una ang formula for acceleration. So, 3 ways to say that an object is accelerating. So one is if the magnitude of velocity of the object is changing. 2, if the direction of motion object is changing, and both if the magnitude of the velocity and the direction of motions are changing. Ano siya ang 3 ways. So, ang pag-indicate ana kay ang positive acceleration kay same og direction, speeding up. While negative acceleration, deceleration, kay mo na siya ang slowing down. Opposite direction yan, nag-slowing down. Walang zero acceleration, kay object is traveling at constant or not moving at all. Next is motion is relative. This means that an object which is moving for you might not be moving relative to another person. So perspective. Consider you and your classmates who is sitting on your respective chairs. Are you in motion? Muna ang question. Kay nami inyo-inyohang perspective. So kani. So si BC and A. Si A kay ang kanang nagbarugra. Well, si BC ka na nasasakyanan. So, of course, na ay lain nga perspective ang both sides. Si BC, ilang tanaw nga si A, kay wala ra naglihok. Well, si A, iyang tanaw ni BC, kay sila may naglihok. So, na ay kanang differences sa both sides. Naglihok and wala naglihok. So, no. Okay, motion is defined as change of position of an object in a specific span of time relative to an observer. There are 6 motion descriptors, namely time, distance, displacement, speed, velocity, and acceleration. So time is a quantity that describes when events took place. Distance is the total length traveled by a moving object. Displacement is the length and direction of the line that connects the initial and final position. It is the vector quantity. Okay. Speed is the rate of change in position. This is a scalar quantity. Velocity, vector quantity. It is the rate of change in position with respect to the reference point. Okay, acceleration, velocity, acceleration is the rate of change. Wait, nabalik na lang. A positive acceleration means that the object is speeding up. A negative acceleration means the object is slowing down. If the acceleration is 0, then the object is following a constant motion. So, wala ra naglihok. Okay. Concept, formula, descriptions, and distance niya. Kana yung formula katong add-add kay magamit na to siya kung mangita sa distance. Then, ang displacement niya, that is the formula. Muna siya if ang initial and final point positions are given. Siya formula sa pag-solve sa displacement. Okay. So, for speed, V equals to distance over time. V is speed, D is distance, T is elapsed time. So, magamit na siya nga formula kung mo-solve na ta sa speed. Nya, kung hatag po ng time elapsed given. Nya, kanya din sa velocity, so direction. So, displacement over time ni siya, V equals to displacement over time. So, magamit na siya kung mag-solve na ta sa velocity. And of course, dito ka-solve ani kung wala gihatag ang time elapsed or given. Or nanoon. Isa na, nag-record pa ko. So, okay. Acceleration. Okay, na-start na ako ang acceleration. Skip. Okay, so, mananata for today. Thank you. Bye-bye.